Good afternoon, YouTube. So in today's video, we're going to go over the late model fuel lines and then go over the early model fuel lines and how to replace them, best ways to go about them. So up top, we have both lines, and they run through through the side of the body, and then they come down here and come out this hole, and then they run down the rest of the way. So a lot of times these lines will dry rot from the inside and will cause massive fires. I've had one car fire from the fuel lines on my early model 83 944. So now on all of our other projects, we've been changing them out. So to go about it, you're going to start up here and you're going to disconnect this with a nut from the factory and disconnect this with a screw and a hose clamp. Then you're going to take both these off and you're going to run them down here. When you get down here, you're going to pull these lines outwards, and there's a clamp right here and down here. Now you have a brake line that runs all the way up here that you can't damage or bend. Once you bend them, you can cause fluid leaks and have no brake. So you have to be very careful how you bend them out. Some people disconnect right here and separate them, and then they'll bleed their brakes later. I didn't. I risked it, and I bent these out, and you're gonna end up taking the tool that I use Lindsay lines, and they sent a tool to cut the fuel lines. So I pulled one out, and you tighten it down, and you do circle motions, and it creates a cut. Then you tighten it more, and keep using circle motions. Once that's out, you put the nut on first, then you put, there's an inner flare, and then in these lines, in the black, it comes pre-flared, and then you tighten them down together right here, and then on this rear line that you can't really see, you do the same thing on there. Once you do those, you run them up through the top, and you can fix them together with a zip tie up here. But just remember that your block gets very hot and your header gets hot. So to do your cam tower, to do that, the zip tie might crack or break. So we just ran them like this. This is an insulator, and I would recommend getting these because for how hot they are, I didn't want another fuel fire. So for the extra $20, I just bought them. Here's your jumper line. I replaced it with an aftermarket Lindsay line. You can go back to the factory ones because it's gonna have new rubber. So either way, it'll work. I've reused the jumper on my other 86, but on this 86 Turbo, I had this in stock, so I just put it on. I don't want any problems with this car. I tightened this nut down and this hose clamp down to where it's snug. It's not gonna come loose. Then what you want to do is you want to prime your fuel pump, and to do that you turn it to the on position, listen for the buzz, turn it off. On position, off, on position, off. Once you do it 3-4 times, you're going to have fuel line in the rails and you're going to have pressure. So then you're going to go ahead and you're going to start it. When you start it, keep a fire extinguisher by, and you're going to come down here and make sure that this connection doesn't leak. Also, these connections make sure they don't leak, but I've never had any problems with that. So just double check up here, no leakage. Any seepage, kill the engine and start again. Retighten everything. I do not have the torque specs handy on these, so I did them good and tight, and I have not had a problem with it. And so right now we'll go take a look at the early model.
Alright, so in the early model cars, they have the fuel lines that come from the top and go down the side of the brake booster and lead down here to the tank. So without having an engine in, here's the best possibility to do, but if not, you're going to have to come from the bottom, undo the clip down here, then undo this clip to move the lines over, and then up top you have to cut really high up here, across here, and across here, then bolt the kit, and then you're going to run the new lines to your fuel rail. So my first thought is we're going to break this and use the one that they send in the kit I have 2 kits, so I have 2 of these, but a normal kit only has 1. So I will go ahead and break that first and then come back. Alright, so it's on a tree, like you'll see right here, but it's a one-way in. So I'm just trying to pry it away, and it'll come out. What I did is I came from the top with a flathead screwdriver and a dead blow hammer, but you can use any kind of hammer, and then break that. And then from the bottom, you're gonna have to do this one from the bottom up. And I'm gonna go down and do that right now. So here we cut the line just to see what we're dealing with, and here's the little barb, and underneath is a crimp. So because there's fumes in there, we're thinking that we're gonna go with a hacksaw with a metal blade to cut down into there, and then we're unpeel it or peel it to pull it apart and then get the rubber off. And then we're gonna take the cut-in tool that Lindsay provides for us, and we're going to go around the top so we have the most amount of room to stretch the line, since they're really tight in the early model cars. The late model cars you have a lot more room to work with, but for some reason the early model cars you don't. So we're gonna go ahead and cut that and get back to you on whether or not it works, or another tip to go forward with this project. All right, so we ended up using a recip saw and cut in below the pinch weld, or the pinch clamp, and we cut through, but we added cut-in fluid around so it didn't cause sparks. If you're going to do this, make sure that there's no fuel in the line, and that the lines are drained from the back, because if you hit and it sparks, you're going to cause a fire and a possible explosion. So I'm not liable for anything, and if you're going to do it, just make sure that you're comfortable with every step involved. But that's just the way I went at it. So we're going to go with the second line, but I also forgot to mention to always keep a fire extinguisher by, and break up the bottom of it by shaking it and making sure that the powder is all broken up off the bottom, so when you need to use it, it's ready. And so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut this off from the bottom. There's cut-in fluid on there, and we're gonna pull it by the line and hold it so we can cut evenly, and then we'll end up being able to put our AN fit-ins on and start running the new lines. All right, so I got a lot done off camera because I needed 2 hands. And so what we did is we ended up taking the saw and cutting underneath both of them, but in the bigger line, this further back line, it does have fuel pressure. So as soon as the fuel pressure sprayed a little bit, we ended up drying it off and then cutting it by hand to reduce sparks and everything. And we didn't have any sparks, luckily. Then we put the AN fit-in on, and again on the second hose, this further back one, it's got a little bit of an angle, so we took the Lindsay tool, the pipe cutter, and we cut off the tip even more, which helped to clean the surface so that we could put the flare and nut on. After that, we connected the flare to the line and tightened it down until it was snug, well, very snug. And now the lines are in. We also put the this insulator over it because these engines get so hot, and after having a fire in my 83, I don't want to risk that again. So for the extra $18 and probably about 10 minutes of work, I just put this insulator on. And so next we'll connect it to the fuel rail, and we're gonna have to drop the engine back in with the new clutch and everything. So after we drop the engine in, I'll show you guys what it looks like after it's connected to the fuel rail.